All right, good morning, girls and gals. We are starting a new section. Don't mind the date, it might be different for us. But we are starting a new ecology chapter. This is our first time to study certain words or language of ecology. So it's not just experiments anymore. And the title of this chapter, which if you haven't done it, please enter it into your table of contents. We're calling it Ecology. Work with what you got. And we'll talk more about what that means. But working with what you got. It's good advice, bad grammar, and it's all good. I'll tell you more soon. It'll be on whatever page you happen to find yourself on for a new chapter. And it'll be whatever date you happen to be on. At the time of this recording, it'd be September 4th. Who knows for you? Scary world, be brave. So what is ecology? Well, ecology is all about where we live. It's about our environment. Ecology studies all the things around us. You can see that it could be a land environment. It could be non-living things like rocks and air, the atmosphere, gases, or the water in the atmosphere, or it could be living things. But the environment's made up of both. We're going to be studying the technical words and language of non-living and living things that make up our environment. You can see that our world is made up of lots of different environments. We have land, but we also have ocean. And deep in the ocean, there's tons of examples of how life is surrounded by non-living things, like salty water. We can also think about how our lives are surrounded by living and non-living things, from the shoes we wear to the trees in our backyard or apartments, right? Now, our environments differ a lot as humans than it does with things in the wild. In nature, you have environments like this, clear, open spaces with lots of natural organisms like animals and plants, mostly, less people. But you can also have an environment more like a city. Now, you can think for a little bit of what it's like to live in the city and our environment there. We have lots of buildings that are made of non-living materials, but the cities themselves are full of humans and other organisms. We're all living very, very closely together. So in this chapter, and as we take notes, we're going to be talking a lot about ecology, which is nature where the animals and plants live, but also how we fit into that environment. Also what it's like for us to live in an environment where we have to get living and non-living things to survive, from air and water to food. So let's think about this for a minute. Living in the cities. So, again, this chapter is titled Ecology, Work with What You Got. And what you should do is, now that you've hopefully put this chapter in your table of contents, you should know what page you're going to place this in. Keep in mind you're going to have to make a pocket. Make pocket. So once you've made your pocket, you then will use your next page after the pocket to start writing notes. On slide 2 here, we have the title of our chapter. So in your notebook, you should write the title of this chapter after that pocket. And again, it's called Ecology, Work with What You Got. And then under that, I want you to create ecology problems. And I'll tell you what we're going to do with it. We're going to copy these down, and then we will use highlighters, and we'll also use markers, whatever you can do to make this slide really stand out and look fun and colorful. Because it's what we're going to keep looking at over and over again as we do this new chapter. With good science, we always start with problems. So we have 2 problems that you will write. And then what I'd like you to do is surround, just like you see this box here, in your notebook, I'd like you to draw, highlight, use markers to color a border that really makes this problem stand out. Now, what is that going to look like? So step by step, right? So firstly, make sure in your notebook you've wrote slide 2, because this is slide 2, and then begin copying down ecology problems 1 and 2. So take your time and don't forget to highlight or use markers to color the outside border. Maybe even highlighter or marker the problem number 1 and 2 just so they stand out. Again, we're trying to show how important they are by adding some color to them. All right, hopefully you've paused the video and given yourself a chance to write down the problems. Now that you've copied them down, let's think about what we've wrote. So in our notebook, we've written slide 2, and we've decorated problem 1 and 2. These big questions or problems we're going to be focusing on as we go through this chapter that we're calling Work with What You Got. So what does that mean, working with what you got? The idea is that whatever you have in your environment, all those living and non-living things that surround us in our environment, the idea is using as much of it as you can to keep your survival as good as possible, keeping yourself healthy as possible and happy. So working with what you got means taking everything you have around you, the living and non-living, and living the best life you can and using it as best as you can. So not wasting anything, being smart about how you use all the living and non-living things around you for happiness. Problem number 1 says, how does our environment influence survival? Well, for most of us, we live in a city, which means in problem number 2, it says, what do we need to know about our environment in Burbank or Los Angeles area? What do we need to know about our environment, and how are we using our environment for survival? Let's do a quick look for fun. Let's just look at some of the dangers our environment throws at us by living in cities. Now, this is an article. I haven't necessarily looked at it for scientific qualities, making sure that it's based on research and evidence, but just let's look at it, check it out for fun, and just see what it has to say. So it's by it's by a magazine called Business Insider, and it says, how living in a city is terrible for you. So we may find that we have stresses in the city, things in our environment, living and non-living, that can make life hard. Let's look at what these different things are. It says, number 1, city life literally says city dwellers have a 21% increased risk of developing anxiety disorder and 39% increased risk of having any mood issues, stresses, struggles in life. So living in a city, people report higher levels of mental issues. Wow, that's scary. It says number 2, the air is polluting our bodies. We've talked about this. We know our Burbank or LA environment got a C+ for environmental health. It says the constant light messes with our sleeps. We've talked about this a little in class. The noise can be confusing. A lot of non-living things. So we have the air, that's non-living affecting us. The noise, non-living things. The light, non-living affecting us. Everyone's always rushing. Oh, that's a living thing that affects us. How many people are crowding around us, moving so quickly? It says it's full of uncaring crowds. So maybe the city's full of lots of people you don't know who maybe don't care about you as much as your family. Maybe even they threaten you. That's a living thing in our environment that affects us, right? And it goes down and down to our immune systems and the things in our cities, from allergens to pathogens, bacteria, virus. Living in a city puts you more up close with those things that like to invade our bodies and make us sick. So that's living things. So another example of living things that can harm us, make us sick. So going back to slide 2, it puts things into perspective. We need to understand what our environment does to us. We need to understand the different living and non-living things that are either making us healthier or making us more unhealthy, from the way our bodies function to the way we feel in our brains, our emotions, our mental health. So mental and physical. So let's spend the rest of this chapter kind of thinking about these things, thinking about some special words we can use, the vocab, but also let's think about what we're getting in from our environment and how we're surviving in our environment and what we can do to be the healthiest and live the healthiest lives possible. All right, let's go. So I've spoken about ecology a little bit, about 9 minutes long, if you're still there and awake. So think about this. This is slide 3. In your notebook, please write slide 3. And here's some examples of images scientists have created to represent ideas of ecology. It's not the only things about ecology, but it's some pictures that represent parts of what it means to study or think about ecology. What I'd like you to do is look at these pictures. You got 3 different ones. And after looking at them, I would like you to try to create a hypothesis of what you think ecology is based on these pictures. And remember, this is just a little part of what ecology means, but just looking at one of them or all of them, come up with a hypothesis of what ecology is. So you'd write slide 3 in your notebook, and then you'd write hypothesis equals, I think ecology is blank. I think ecology is about, or you could put covers ideas about, or I think ecology describes blank. So you have lots of different examples. There's some sentence starters for you. Good luck. Now that you've spent some time thinking about the definition for yourself, let's copy this definition of what our textbook, or what other scientists call ecology. All right, so you would write slide 4 in your notebook. So write that down in your notebook. All right, so it says ecology is the interactions among organisms and their environments. And as we've said, and I've mentioned before already, it says the study of how living things interact with other living things and non-living things. So it's your life, where you live, all the non-living and living things that you are affected by or that you affect in your day-to-day life. All right, the task on this slide, so after you copy down the definition, you would, number 1, say make a list of 5 things. So in your notebook, you'd write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 living things that you interact with. 5 living things you touch, hear, smell, interact with in your environment. And this says this includes currently and formerly living things. So it could be things that have been alive before or that are currently alive. So think about that. Have fun with it. And then number 2, it says make another list of 5 things. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of things that aren't alive in your life, that you depend on, that you use, that you touch, hear, smell, or see, that's important for your survival in your environment. So think about the things personally in your life that you care about, that you use, that are non-living maybe. All right, good luck. That's slide 4. So since we're in high school, I want us to start using more technical words. So instead of living, we're going to start using a word called biotic. So in your notebook, let's learn about biotic. So in your notebook, write slide 5, biotic variables. So if it's in a pink box, remember, we copy it down as a definition. So we have slide 5 and do biotic variables, and then write equals living variables or organisms, anything alive that live or inhabit in your environment. Quick, simple definition. And then finally, look at this artist painting here. This painting was called biotic, just like this, our vocab word. So why would the artist title this painting biotic? And so you would say hypothesis. Artist named painting biotic because blank. And finish it up. All right, good luck. But just look at the picture, study it, examine it like a good, true art critic, like you're in a museum, and decide, why do you think the artist named it biotic? All right.